Mate, what a war that was. That was amazing. And the build up, again, these tests have been brilliant, haven't they? Like the build up to them both. And we've got 4 of the best 5 teams in the world going at each other. And, people are talking about who's the best team in the world. And people are now saying Ireland are the best team in the world because they've just beaten the Springboks again. But the narrative in the build up, Razzie didn't change anything, did he? He was like, nah, you go again, you beat us. And Ireland obviously had a few injuries. They made a big change in Peter O'Mahony moving from skipper down to the bench, which I really loved. Nothing against Peter O'Mahony, but the fact that Ty Byrne can slip into 6 as well. And you've played with him on a Lions series. He actually came on the pod and told us he prefers playing 6th than second row, but just in pure size terms. And I saw a stat, right? And we talk about South Africans, the power game, how big they are and all this stuff. I saw a stat on the TV that when the packs, they have those stats where pack weights as they're going down for one of their first scrums. Ireland were 24 kilos heavier than South Africa. It was either 20 or 24 kilos collectively than South Africa, which I was looking at going, what? That's amazing because the Saffers are absolutely monstrous, aren't they? But, credit to Ireland. James Ryan came back in and did a hell of a job. Caelan Doris, as skipper, was off the charts good. And they basically, Ireland did to South Africa what South Africa do to a lot of teams. They just monstered them. And you talk about what Razzie and Sia Khaleesi came and said after the game. They're saying that they physically dominated us. And how many times have you heard South Africans say that about themselves? And the one thing I'm gutted about, and Biggs, I'm happy you're on, but what would Jim be saying now? He'd be like, I told you so. I told you Ireland had it in them. No, you didn't, Jim. No, you didn't.
We should try and give Jim a quick FaceTime now, see if he picks up.
Yeah.
Get him on.
He's lost in Vegas. I think he's lost in Vegas on his own. But yeah, I mean, Ireland were phenomenal. To bounce back from last week with the injuries, losing Bundy Aki in the centres, who's a big.
That was going to be my point, Goodey. I watched the game on Saturday, yesterday afternoon, and I fully agree with you. Ireland and Sia Khaleesi's post-match conference summed it up. Basically, they lost a load more collisions this week than they did last week, which is ultimately why they were able to stay in the game. Ireland were able to stay in the game due to that. But the 2 things I took away from that game sort of straight away was how far and above those 2 teams are to anybody else at the minute. I thought they were absolutely... I think you've got Ireland and South Africa, and the next best team is considerably below them. I thought they were off the charts. The intensity, the physicality, it was brutal, was it? It was like, it was absolutely brutal out there. It looked like, you had Etzebev, Mostard, Jack Frawley, all of these guys absolutely banged up, bloodied up, and it was just brutal.
Piss and blood everywhere. Yeah, it was amazing.
Piss and blood.
And they all stood there. What about when Eben stood there with blood all over his face? Same with...
Telling the physio to get off.
Yeah, Mostert, he's like, I just want to look hard as fuck here with my blood. But that's what it was. It was an out-and-out war, wasn't it? It was... Yeah. And you watching it like you're playing the game, and I said it last week on the pod, watching the Ireland... South Africa game in Pretoria, I probably never felt further away from the game in terms of the physicality of it, as well as the New Zealand-England game and how it is. Are you watching that game thinking, I'd love a bit of that? Or, is it that physical because it looked off the charts, didn't it?
Yeah. Probably, especially for those front row boys, especially because of the way the 2 teams play, Ireland and South Africa, they just play a lot of off nine. So you're actually just... It's almost like pack on pack or forward on forward so often, and it's a man test then when you play South Africa. But I will say, I thought I haven't missed a huge amount of international rugby. Admittedly it's been less than a year. I've been retired, but last week watching that game at Pretoria, at Loftus with the anthem and the atmosphere and things, that was probably the first time I thought that was something to miss, because we played there 2 years ago and it was comfortably the best atmosphere I've ever played at in my career. Best venue, best set of fans. It was an incredible day. So that's probably the first time I missed. But yeah, like you said, off the charts. And the second thing I was looking at was after the how far and above I think Ireland and South Africa are, is I'm not sure any other team could have gone there to Kings Park in Durban when they haven't lost for 8 years, South Africa, with missing Gibson Park, missing Hugo Keenan, missing Bundy Aki, and got a result. Having to drop Dan Sheehan as well, move in your captain, who you'd say is your first choice or strongest player in that position. So for me, the other thing that strikes me, and this is quite a nice link into to next season, is how well coached Ireland are. I just thought, what other team loses your 4 or 5 best players and within a week can go and do that to the back-to-back world champions in a ground they haven't lost to for 8 years? So I think Andy Farrell deserves huge credit, and his coaching staff. And I'd be very surprised if you don't see a few of those guys on the Lions tour with him in 12 months' time. And I think it just puts the Lions in such a strong position for 12 months' time, knowing how well coached they are. Because if you look at the try they scored in the first half, it was almost a carbon copy play of what they did in the first test, but they did it off 9 in the first test and off 10 in the second test. So all of a sudden you think, well, how well coached, what does their training look like for them to be able to be as precise and change something like that in such a short space of time? And, they probably wouldn't have trained till Wednesday, Thursday, probably, after being beaten up last week in Pretoria. And it's almost like a little inside ball, but the guy's hiding behind the guy. Yeah, it's like the slice on the inside where you're hiding, and all of a sudden the South Africans just want to hit a body, and all of a sudden the ball's left. And I just thought they were absolutely brilliant. I thought both teams were brilliant, but I thought Ireland deserve huge credit, and that goes to show how well coached they are. And in fairness, what a drop goal at the end was! Frawley was just off the charts. I mean, some stones on him, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you talk about Frawley, I might come back to that. Actually, I'll start with that. The bollocks on the man. After missing the one in the Champions Cup final, let's not forget, it was half a yard away from winning the Champions Cup for Leinster, the hurt of that. But the actual bollocks to do it twice. They do it straight from the goal line dropout, don't they? Horrible goal line dropout from Hondre Pollard. Probably one of the ugliest things. It was one of mine. Ugliest sin.
I was just about to say, Goodey. I was just about to say, I've hit a couple like that in my career as well. Don't worry.
Yeah. I hit hundreds, but But then, like the drop goal from Frawley to get the 3 points there, like you said, after going to the corner and turning or being held up over the line. But then, how quickly he did it in that last play. I'm thinking. Right, it's obviously not altitude, it's sea level, it's Durban, I've lived there, it's fucking a great place. But then to go that quickly, where you think sometimes as a 10, you manage it and you hope that might be a penalty if you can get some momentum from your forwards. But they've gone snap 3 phases in, haven't they, pretty much? And it's from a similar spot where he drops the first one. First one was one of the purest strikes he'll ever get. The second one, he said it himself, it was a bit of a wobbler. But the stones on him to do that, because he misses that, it's game over. The Hooters there. And they did say that the shot clock and the actual clock on the field in terms of the timer wasn't as clear as it could have been. So potentially, maybe he thought it was 80 minutes already, or he thought there was a little bit of time to go. Because he said him and Blade spoke about it on the pitch, that they didn't know exactly where the clock was and how quickly you could see it or pick it up. Whereas, in other stadiums, you know exactly what's going on. But the stones on the man to win that, and then the drama around going to the TMO and checking Cheslin Colby. Does Caelan Doris just move a little bit to shake him off? Does Cheslin Colby dive? Now, no one will have a bad word said about Cheslin Colby here, because everyone talks about what an amazing player he is and a bloke and what he's achieved in the game. But I reckon he's taken a bit of a dive, in the hope that either... either Finlay Bealham.
It's absolutely
Finlay Bealham's
not
about to leave. No, it's not at all. But Finlay Bealham, is he going to leave the leg out? So does Cheslin take a bit of a dive in the hope that something gets seen? And do you know what? And I'll go, Carl Dixon, I've given him a bit of stick on here. over time for some performances. But the way he managed the game as a referee, it's like herding cats with Ireland and South Africa. They're all at him for checking things. Look at that high hit, sir. Look at this, sir. And I thought Carl Dixon handled the game really well as a ref, and Luke Pearce, and we might get onto the talking point around the croc roll from Caelan Doris and what James Ryan did. But the end of the game, going back to Kieran Frawley, the stones on him after missing the one at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. He's basically won Ireland the game with the drop goal against the number one team in the world. And that whole debate will rage on now. But yeah, I mean, what a legend. There's the whole Sexton thing. And you go back around some drop goals, right? And talk about O'Gara's drop goal that won a Grand Slam a fair few years ago. Sexton's one that started a Grand Slam in Paris from 50 metres a few years back. That's up there. Frawley's one to win a game, win a test match. I think it's only for the second or third time in South Africa that Ireland have won there. That is a huge set of nuts. And I'm so glad that there was a bit of drama, but the drama stayed good and he got the win in the end.
And I just thought they looked a proper team, and I thought they deserved that. I thought their first half was as good a rugby as I've seen from any team for a long, long time. And I think off the back, on the whole of the game, I asked myself a question again. I put it to you, Goodey. South Africa have a penalty. They are 21-19 ahead, are they, or what are they? Yeah, 21-19 ahead. And Pollard, it's about 5 meters in from touch. Pollard kicks the kick, great kick from Pollard, puts some foot. Do you chance your arm? Do you, as a gambler, would you have gone to the corner there? Because a try from South Africa there probably finishes the game. Do you know what I mean? Could they have been a bit more positive in that aspect, or do you think they just think...
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. Their driving line out hadn't functioned properly, had it? And Ireland had them. And in a game like that, when it is fine margins, I think getting a 5-point lead, as they did, they'd gone to 24-19, didn't they? With that penalty, take a bit of stick. Probably the right thing, but hindsight's easy, isn't it? You go back and think, maybe you drive one there and you get a try. But I think I'd have probably taken the 3. Depends if I had a kicking bonus in my contract and a point scoring thing. that always influenced me. But I think because they weren't at the races as South Africa had been the week before. He didn't make any changes, Razzie. He just thought they'd rock up and be able to overpower Ireland again as they did in that first test. And we talked about it on the pod last week, and Jim was like, Ireland looked a bit off the pace, looked a little bit tired. It's the end of the season. But then the noises coming out of the Ireland camp in the week, Caelan Doris in their pre-match press conferences and Andy Farrell was saying, no, there's a good feeling this week. We're ready to go. We know what it takes to get to those arousal levels again, as they did at the World Cup against South Africa, and as they had to, because I think a lot of people would have thought going into that game, with the changes, with the players missing, with the momentum South Africa had after winning last week, that it could have been a comfortable South African victory. But credit to every player, management, anyone on that tour, physio, masseuse, whatever they were, to get the boys and to get their juices to the levels that they got them to basically stop the hardest, most brutal team in the world at their own game.
I was just about to say, how good was Caelan Doris in amongst all that, though?
Yeah, proper leader. And you look at Caelan Doris now, we're big friends of his. Jim's had FaceTimes off him when he's been in these dancing places in Las Vegas. That's probably where Jim is now, to be fair. I think he said there were tap dancing places or something like that. Anyway, we're big fans of him. We know his agent well. He's a legend of a bloke, is Caelan Doris. And he's put his hat in the ring now with that change in a performance to be, and I said it, he should be Ireland's captain moving forward, and then they made Peter O'Mahony captain, but Lions captaincy. It's a huge statement. We are a year out from a Lions tour, but you've got a guy that's changed the fortunes of South Africa in a week with a leadership performance, like a proper skipper's performance that is leading from the front in every facet of the game. Even to the point of his post-match press conference where he's saying, I'm in the sin bin, things are going wrong here and I can't be on the field to influence it. Comes back on and my God, does he influence it. So Caelan Doris for Lions captain will start the campaign here. I'm looking around at other countries, other players. I reckon Caelan Doris is a nailed on British and Irish Lions captain now. But yeah, he was huge in everything he did. Like, I look at him sometimes and he runs quite upright, doesn't he? And he's a big man, but he's not a monster. But how he just goes back to the well, and every collision, every contact, he's looking to spin. If he gets belted, he's still looking to spin. And, we saw the tackle in the URC semi-finals where he got melted. He still comes back for more and manages to get over the gain line, manages to influence breakdowns, he stripped the ball off Quagga Smith, didn't he? I don't know how, whether it was legal or whatever, but he does stuff. And sometimes he gets caught, rightly so, but he lives on the edge. And the best players live on the edge with their physicality, with what they're doing at breakdowns, learn quickly if the referee catches them or carries on in the same. Richie McCaw, one of the best players, and that's what he's been compared to with this performance, a skipper's performance, a Richie McCaw performance. And I don't think there's much higher praise than that for a back rower of Caelan Doris's magnitude and stature to have that performance, and what he did certainly influenced Ireland to victory. I don't want to be harsh. I think over time, we might see a change at the guard at 10. Andre Pollard kicked his goals really well, but they're trying to attack a bit more with Tony Brown and get to the width. They didn't look as comfy doing it this week. There's a lot of Diolende and Jesse Creel just taking collisions as opposed to looking for space. I thought Sasha Feenberg Mngomezulu, I thought he was outstanding. I said his name last week, and I think I got it right.
I'm glad you said his name first, Goodey, because I wasn't quite sure, but he was unreal, wasn't he?
Fullback,
absolutely unreal.
But he's a natural 10 as well. So, there's him, there's Marnie Lebok. If they are going to take their game to the next level, and they have to try and expand their game, we've seen Ireland have stopped their physicality, haven't we?
Goodey, do you think they have to expand their game? Because I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that they've just won 2 back-to-back World Cups by doing the same thing for 5 years. And nobody can stop it.
Argument. Yeah, Ireland did it the weekend, but pretty much
Ireland did it the week. But do you know what I mean? We spoke about the build up to the game. I loved Razzie last week where he said, Ireland have been quite successful against us, but I could guarantee they'd change those results for 2 World Cup winners' medals. Do you know what I mean? So I just think in terms of what I'm saying is South Africa have been the best team in the world in my eyes for the last 5 years, back-to-back World Cups, Rugby Championship, etc., etc. So my argument is, the reason why we were disappointed in England and why England were playing as poorly as they were, because they weren't winning. So my argument is, what's coming against South Africa. You don't have to review South Africa. You know exactly what's coming. And my argument is, do they have to change? The age profile, and when those boys finish, I fully agree. But while you've still got that squad intact, I would say do not change a single thing.
No, don't change your strengths, which I agree with, but you've got to have an eye on the future as well with an evolution. Because you can't get to a point, it's like with Wales now, and respectfully with Wales, you had that golden generation of all the monsters like Jamie Roberts in the centres. The way you boys set up to play was bloody successful, but then the follow on from that, just trying to evolve something new without integrating something over a few years is difficult, isn't it? So South Africa could go... And you go, like South Africa could go the next 4 years with the age profile of that squad and just continue doing what they're doing, and probably, potentially win another World Cup in 4 years' time, but there's no evolution. You don't have to evolve. You have to evolve on the training field, I think. You don't necessarily have to do it in test matches straight away, but they're playing Portugal this week, so we're going to see a different way of playing for South Africa, I'm sure. With their, keep your super strengths, keep, exactly what you're good at, but do you have to add to it? And when you've got Cheslin Colby, you've got Arensa on the other wing, if Feenberg and Mngomezulu plays at fullback now, I know Philly LaRue took a horrible bang on the head, and it is concussion, so he'll be fit again for the Rugby Championship. But Villy's knocking on 30 odd, isn't he? So you have to look at the future as well. So it's something that Razzie's a ridiculously intelligent coach, isn't he? He's got the best tools to deal with, but also he's going to be looking at the future as well. And, bringing Tony Brown in is perhaps an evolution. You can't have Tony Brown in and not attack, can you? Because he's a brilliant coach. So it's a balance of what you do.
Rugby Pod.